What's the worst thing anybody has ever said to you online since you started making content?
Uh, oh man, that's a hard question. There's a lot of things. I mean, like, I know where you live, I know where your family members are, things like that. Like, oh man, it's been wild. Like somebody straight up said that they like had connections to like some kind of gang or something like that. And I was like, what gang? I just kind of played into it a little bit. Never really got a response. I guess I'm still waiting for a box to show up at my door with like a head in it or something. I guess we'll see.
I
But
actually wasn't expecting that answer, but
come on, man.
it doesn't surprise me at the same time.
It's a rough world out there, man. Especially with criticism in Pokemon. You can criticize the games for looking choppy and blocky and a windmill working at like 2 frames per second, and people want to kill you, man.
Pokemon ain't playing around, man. It ain't
Sure
playing
not.
around. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Thanks for coming on, by the way.
Oh yeah, I'm Opossum Bud. You can call me Nick though. Just a Pokemon collector. Someone's been collecting Pokemon cards for a long time. Make videos of varying degrees. I'm sure that's a known thing. Criticisms, commentaries, openings. Still a regular collector. Just voicing my opinion about things in the only way I really know how, on a video camera and with a microphone. And it's never been easier to do so in the Pokemon community with how many different avenues and accepting groups of people there are. There's people that even like there's a group for everybody here.
You've been doing it for quite a while, first on Instagram, but collecting as well. You've been collecting for a very long time.
Don't show those videos, man. Those are bad videos.
Hey man, that's how I found you.
Bad video.
That's how I found you, and I haven't looked back since.
I look back at those videos sometimes like, oh my god, man, I was a different guy.
Why'd you start collecting? I know it's a pretty generic question, but what brought you into
I've always loved Pokemon. That's like the super generic question. Like, Pokemon's my childhood forever. I love Pokemon. I got tattoos. It's in my bloodstream. You do the DNA searches. There's Pokemon inside me. But no, I've always liked Pokemon. I've always liked the appeal of it. I've always liked the games. I've played the games a whole lot. I liked the TCG a lot growing up. I kind of moved from Pokemon TCG to Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of sparingly growing up, but I always went back to Pokemon. Always went back to that. Kind of became an adult. Didn't really have any money, so I kind of had to slow down on that. I really picked back up collecting Pokemon cards again, like 2015-ish area, and I was doing English mostly because it was what was around, and then Japanese I'd pick up here and there where I could. I've always liked Japanese cards. Living on my stepdad's line of work, he always had access to different cultures and things like that, and Japanese cards was something that kind of flowed in at some point. I saw those. I liked how it looked a little bit more, not necessarily for any particular reason. I just thought they looked cooler. Like, oh god dang, that's a cool looking card right there, and it just kind of stuck with me. I don't know. As I grew up and got more access to funds and able to do stuff, I just want to collect Japanese cards. They're cool.
You're definitely like one of the more prolific Japanese Pokemon card collectors online. Mm-hmm. Someone that I kind of like. I mean, when I got into the space, I started following you instantly because you have just like such a huge collection and you know quite a bit about it.
That's crazy because I could like look at other people's pages and say the exact same thing. Like, I don't really necessarily think my collection is better than like anybody else's, because like I feel like a lot of people have certain cards that like I don't have, or like I'm still finding cards about like in Japanese promos and things like that I didn't even know about. And it's kind of crazy to hear you say that, because I mean I look at your collection too and I'm like, man, JLUV's got some dank cards over there. That's some good stuff. Like I do the same thing to you, man.
Yeah, I guess as part of it, like it's part of what keeps it fun. The appeal of going online and sharing your collection with others. It's part of the appeal there. Like you get to show it off with other people, you get to talk about it, and you get to learn new stuff. So why did you start going online? Like what brought you into the content space with your collection?
Virginia did, actually. My wife, Virginia.
Oh, really?
So she had an Instagram account forever ago. Like she's been doing like the Instagram and Pinterest stuff for a like long time. She used to be like super into house designing and stuff like that. She used to like look at like people's designs, and then like her nerd stuff she did on the side. She's always like Sailor Moon and Hello Kitty. And I did Pokemon, and she just told me one day, she's like, hey, there's a bunch of people on Instagram like showing like their collections and things like that. And I didn't really have a social media before that at the time. Not really. Like Instagram was like my first kind of big one.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, cool. You think like they just show their cards? Like, what do they do? And she explained to me. I hopped on. My first picture ever was the Reshiram Charizard from Double Blaze. It was just a box I'd gotten like right before I made the account. And I just posted that up, and that was my very first thing. And I've been posting there just cards and stuff ever since. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, it's really cool part of I guess your content is that you share it with your partner, with it's Miss Virginia X on Instagram.
I can't remember. Meet Virginia.
Meet Virginia. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the joke. It's the train song that everyone always jokes about her. Like she gets that, or she gets Yes Virginia, there is a Santa Claus constantly. So she just picked one and said, fuck it, that's my identity now.
Is that like an American thing? Because I have no idea.
You don't know the train song? Yeah, dude, you have to know. You don't know Meet Virginia
No, I'm gonna
by
have to look.
Train?
No, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you're
have to
gonna have
look
to
that
look
up.
that up. Like that's a Train song. You know, the Soul Sister guys.
It's like a band, man. I gotta.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not cultured, dude.
You
I'm
could
gonna.
tell me an Australian band, I'd probably do the
I
exact same thing.
know.
Like,
I'm
what the
gonna have to
fuck you
look that up
talking
later.
about?
I'm like, yeah, okay, sounds cool, dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For those who don't know you, sorry, we probably should have done this a little bit earlier.
Oh,
Opossum Bud,
okay.
formerly, or not formerly, but like originally started on Instagram, but now you hopped on the YouTube train after a lot of. I nagged you a lot about this for a long time. I kept saying, man,
Yeah,
get
you
your
did.
videos on
You were on my
YouTube.
case for a long time, like months, dude. Like you'd be like, man, you gotta hop on there, and I was like, man, you, dude, you don't know what you're talking about.
But
But no, you
since,
did.
yeah, like you've had like massive success ever since getting
Oh
on here. And it's
no,
because,
not massive.
oh, come on,
No,
man, don't undersell yourself.
no.
You're doing really well, but like you're creating really good videos, like videos that people want to watch, which is like the key to getting onto YouTube. But your content has definitely what you do has sort of changed, I guess, since you started, because your account, so you started as like a collector account, and you still are, like you still do share like your
Mhm.
collection and the cards you've got, and you talk about them. You still love it. I mean, I think you do, but a lot of what you do is you help the community like massively. And the C word, like I've spoken about this heaps. The C word community, it means two different things. I think
It really
you are
does.
you're one of the real ones that like legitimately helps the community. Yeah, your content is like arguably polarizing. I personally love it. So what made you shift into doing that? Like why did you just decide, you literally at some point woke up and just chose violence?
Yeah. What kind of happened is there was somebody in the community who was doing stuff with Champions Path. I'm sure you're aware that Champions Path kind of kicked off a lot of boom stuff, especially over here in the States. A
Yeah.
lot of people were after those Chase Charizards. There's people taking pre-orders. There's people doing a bunch of things that seemed kind of scandalous. Well, there was someone I actually worked with that I was friends with that was affected by one of these scams. Like someone I actually worked with, Chris. I still talk to him every now and again,
Mm.
and he was affected by that. There were people were just kind of doing like shammy pre-orders for that. And my very first like video like that, I was like October of 2020, and just me sorting cards on a table, like literally me. I had no idea what else to do. I didn't want to show my face still at the time because I was still like, yeah, people, man, I don't want to do that. I was just talking about this guy and like being like, hey, this is what this guy's doing with these pre-orders. You probably should be a little bit more hesitant on that stuff. And I kind of just kept going from there. I liked it. Someone I knew got affected by it, and I was like, well, no one else is really saying anything about it. The big dogs aren't saying nothing about it. They're too busy making YouTube videos, which, hey, more power to them. But like, no one really knew about these people and the potential scams and schemes they were doing. Luckily, we have more people now that kind of talk about it. It's not really a big deal. Even yourself, you kind of delve into a little bit of informing people of the bad things people do. But it wasn't common in 2020 at all. Like, no one really
Yeah.
wanted to talk about it.
It's kind of how it goes, though. Usually, no one wants to talk about it until it affects them or somebody they know. And it's not a slight or like an attack or anything. Like, I think that's just a kind of natural thing. Like, people don't feel like they can either one, change anything, or two, like they might feel a little bit afraid of the repercussions, because it is pretty scary. Like you speak up about something that 95% of people are uneducated on it and enjoying. And then the second you shine like the light on like the dark side of it, you get all these haters come at you.
I can't tell you how many times I made videos and I was like, man, this is it. Like I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I'm out of this community. People are gonna basically like shun me and like say this stuff because it's not positive. Just like you said, people just kind of. I was afraid people wouldn't want to hear it a lot. Like a lot.
I was going to actually circle back to that point later on, but you just brought it up. That exact feeling of like, you want to talk about something so badly, and you think, and you know it's like the right thing to talk about, but you know, in the back of your mind, just like, nah, if I talk about this, like, it's not going to be met well. I don't think you've really hit that like at any point, or have you? Like, have you ever had one where you thought and felt the
closest
repercussions
I've
of it?
ever been is like where there's one video I put out on YouTube that kind of got a little bit of backlash, but I definitely don't think it was unjustified. It was somebody asking for money for them to fund like some Pokemon cards. And
I remember this. Yeah,
that is the biggest ratio I've ever gotten. It was fine. It was like at 83% likes or something like that. Like it still was taken well. But that's like the closest I've ever gotten to somebody like actively like saying that what I was doing was wrong. And I didn't even insult the person that bad. I said what they were doing was cool and what they were doing were fine. I thought a GoFundMe for cars for their collection was extreme, especially during the
That
thing
was
that
like
happened a
that
year and
was
a half
like
ago. Yeah, that was peak. Like
peak.
we were
Yeah,
still
yeah.
in that. We were still in that.
It's really tricky though, because like, and I
Mhm.
was going to circle back. I was going to come around to this later, but I figured we might as well just fast forward and go to it now.
Yeah,
It's
fuck it,
this
let's
whole
do it
thing
now.
of it's this whole thing of like constant positivity.
Mhm.
The Pokemon space feels like one where you have to be like positive all the time. And the second like you speak negatively about something or someone, even if it's fully justified, it's like you committed a war crime. Like all of a sudden you get this target painted on your back. Like a lot of people will come and just call you a hater and say, why are you
Yeah.
being so negative? Like, why are you spreading negativity? Granted, there are a lot of people, and it's not a topic I talk lightly about because I don't want to dismiss the massive amount of people that are like very supportive of you speaking up and speaking about it. Like,
Oh yeah.
those people are definitely there. A lot of times it feels like it's a loud minority, or no, it's a loud majority, and like the people that want to see it spoken up about are the minority. It's the thing. It's like it's this constant like you always got to be positive, and the second you say something bad, like you're like you're literally evil.
On one hand, I get it. I understand where it comes from. As somebody who used to not think about it that hard, used to be like, well, what does it matter? Like, what does it care? No one can say anything or do anything about it.
Boing.
It's the thing. It's accepted. It's in our meta. I mean, if you look at like YouTube as a whole in like the Pokemon space, it all follows relatively the same formula. And that's kind of how like the mindsets of like, you know, content creation and Instagram and like other stuff was too. It was all very one way, and it was all very, it had to be like this, how it seemed anyway. And there was nothing else to it. So I get where that came from, where people don't really want to go against it. At the same time, like I said, I've really had a lot of people either stick up for me, have my back, or just straight up say, no, this guy isn't really bad. I had another person try to say that I was saying things about somebody because I was being misogynistic or sexist. That was a big one that popped up, and a lot of people shut that down for me. I didn't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were like, absolutely not. They just have a problem with something that you're doing. If you don't like that, that's fine. But why the hell are you saying that like it's a personal attack when they didn't even say anything personally about you?
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, is I don't say anything about people personally. Not really. Like it's maybe a light joke here or there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I never say anything about how somebody looks or something that they can't control. It's usually the action that they've decided to dig themselves into.
I learned that the hard way. I a couple of weeks ago I was like, wait, should I say that? No, I can't run that back. I was making fun of Leon Hart's receding hairline.
Yeah, you were.
And people were like, whoa, hey,
that was funny.
Too far. And I'm like, really? Like I've said significantly worse things.
You're like, give me a couple years. That's going to be me in 2 years.
Well, I'm like, come on. Like, I looked back at it. I'm like, okay, maybe a little bit too far, but I was like, I was just saying the truth. Also, like, it's not that bad. Yeah.
Like, it's not really like, I guess where people are kind of bad. I get it, but at the same time, like, it's funny.
It was funny. And you know what? I'd do it again.
Hell yeah.
You touched on that a little bit. Like you've had a lot of people come up and stick up for you. I mean, just from my experience, and I reckon yours is probably the same. Like you could get 1,000 people come at you and say like you're a POS, like you're this, you're that, like literally trying to tear you down. But if you know deep down like what you're talking about is and what you're sticking up for is right, and even there's just one person that is like affected by that positively, like it's actually helped them. For me, that makes it worth it. Like
it does.
Yeah.
So it kind of was like not just with that about me making content as well. I don't know how long you've been actually in collecting Pokemon cards. I'm sure you've been around for a little bit.
Actually, not that long, dude. Like I've
Really?
collected since I was a kid, but I've probably dropped off between I'd say like 2006 to 2018. Like I was just like I'd look at it, but it was just, I was not in it, not in a hardcore. I was still playing Pokemon and I was still playing the games, but like collecting, no. I picked it up.
You've been around kind of long enough to know the Japanese didn't used to be the thing to get, though, right?
Oh, yeah. I know that. Yeah.
So back in the day, even further, talking about 1,000 people saying, like, you know, one thing versus another. Japanese cards, I used to have to defend why I collected them to people. Like, people would be like, why are you collecting these? You can't read them. You can't do anything like that. And, like, that's, like, where, like, some of my content, I'm imagining yours, too, comes from, where it's, like, this whole shift of, like, where people like Japanese cards is just the craziest thing, because like not even that long ago, it's like, oh, I like these cards because they're cool. They didn't used to be expensive. They didn't used to be sought after. They didn't used to be like a luxury item like they are now.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, like 1,000 people will say, but as long as you got like one person or you yourself know what you're doing is right, you can apply that to collecting. Like if you like what you're collecting,
Yeah.
like who cares what anybody says?
That's something you've been talking about a little bit.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, Japanese is popular.
I sure have.
Yeah, and it's tricky because it's like I struggled with this the last like 3 months or so since it ramped up in popularity, because my channel is primarily focused on Japanese Pokemon cards, and a lot of your content is too.
That's why I like your channel. You and Crystal, like both
and
of you
Crystal
guys.
collects,
I like you guys a lot because you collected not just the standard English stuff.
Yeah,
kind of went against the grain.
The hardest thing now is like seeing people jump on it and battling with this feeling of like, am I gatekeeping now because I'm talking about this? And well, I guess what we're going to talk about is how popular Japanese Pokemon cards have just suddenly gotten the last 3 months, right?
That G word is dangerous. You say that 3 times and you get your channel demoted, man. So it's just going to be off the page. You say that 2 more times, you got 2 more.
Susan just appears in a mirror behind you.
She pops behind you and just
you're gone, dude. You're gone. No, but it's true. Like,
it is.
You like, because Pokemon has such a communal aspect. The second you even push back at someone like engaging in it and enjoying it, you get painted as this villain. But there are a lot of people out there that are engaged in the hobby for the wrong reasons. They just are, like it is. And we've seen a lot pop up. Like I guess since VSTAR Universe
exactly.
popped up, like we've seen them come out in droves.
I don't have a problem with people getting into Japanese cards at all. That's not the issue whatsoever. In fact, I want people to get into them so I can, talk to people. We can trade, we can talk, we can, discuss sets, we can say what our favorite cards are, because that's what's cool. Everybody has a different Pokemon that they like. Like even like sets that people don't really like a whole bunch. Like, I don't know, like what's a set recently that didn't do super well, I guess, or people didn't like a ton.
Skyscraping Perfect from last year, the one with Duraludon.
Oh, dude, yeah, Duraludon. Yeah. I like that card actually, the Duraludon alt art and the VMAX alt art. But that's cool though, because you can talk to people about that and like
it's polarizing because there will be people like that. It's a set that got written off, but there are people out there that like it. I love it.
That's a very good deck meta right now though, too, right?
Duraludon's come back, 100%. Yeah, and it's actually funny because those cards were like dirt cheap for such a long time.
They were so cheap
because no one cared about that set, and now all of a sudden, Duraludon is like a pretty viable, tier 1.
Alt art VMAX was like what 160 or not 100, 1,600 yen, 16,000 yen, something like that.
It was dirt cheap,
recently, 17,000 yen.
As a collector, you want to see as many people as possible get into the hobby. It's not a matter of like gatekeeping the people that have come in, like gotten interested because of VSTAR Universe at all. Like if you have seen that set, you watched either of our videos, like we're not saying people can't start collecting Japanese Pokemon cards. It's not our place to even say it. Yeah,
no, couldn't stop anybody if we wanted to.
No, exactly. But we can't deny that at this period of time, like there has been a lot of like artificial pumping because of this set, because of the opportunity that presented itself.
It's like misinformation, man. Like I think that's like the big thing that's like getting me is you got some people that are popping up and you can very clearly see where it's coming from, where people are perpetuating what the MSRP in Japan is and trying to like kind of. It's not easy always to get cards here in the United States, especially when something is like in demand. I understand that, but some of the stories that some of the tubers are like just spreading, it's just not true. That's not how it is. These sets are going to be around. They were not going to just cut an entire wave and be like, oh, a playable set to get like playable cards in people's hands. Yeah, we're not getting that there. We're going to wait 2.5 months to print out this set. Sorry, everybody that want to go play in decks and in like stores and stuff. Ain't happening, big dog, because we messed up a print. Like there's no way, dude. And like the misinformation with that, prices, how the shipments were working. I mean, me and you've been around for a little bit, and then just watching these guys who, and I don't mean this in a bad way, just recently started opening Japanese product, like saying things like it's gospel, saying things like they've been here for 4 or 5 years. It's just wrong. You're gonna get some people that are gonna get FOMO'd for no reason. Yeah, they're gonna lose money.
That's right. And there's two sides of that coin. Like
there is.
I respect anybody who has the courage to hit record, go live, and put their content out there.
Absolutely, everyone can do it, and I respect anyone's opinion.
But it really feels like there's two kinds of people that are doing it at the moment, right? And one of them is those that are doing it to make money, right? Now, making content for the like most part is an endeavor to make money, like because you will earn money from doing it. There are people that want to just get videos out there and talk about it, but there are people that want to make a livelihood out of it, right? And
that's fair.
Yeah, and again, and like respect to that, like everybody's allowed to have their crack at it. Well, the second one then is the ones that are doing it just to ride that popularity train because that's the thing, and they'll probably jump from like thing to thing. We don't know where they came from. That all of a sudden they're just ripping up.
Oh, we know where they came from because there's a pattern. These are the same guys that were pumping vintage like a year ago, a year and like a few months ago. They were on Whatnot. Pumping vintage cards, pumping.
Take the word out of my mouth, man.
Dude, man. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I was about to bring it up. No, go.
I'm sorry.
No. Well, whatnot? That's the big thing. No, it's like we're on the same page, which is good. But like that's the whole thing. Whatnot. Sorry, keep going. If you don't know what whatnot is, by the way, it's a
terrible website.
It's a. I don't know. I don't want to get.
There's good people on there. It's just an easy place for bad people to do bad things. That's a good way to put it.
That's a good way to put it. Well, that's the thing. You just see people come out of absolute nowhere or have come from a previous money making scheme where they just are trying to jump on the hype so they can sell boxes of this stuff for $100, $150.
I saw $250 for VSTAR Universe. That was where I was like, oh my goodness, like is it that big a deal? Like is it that good of a set?
I think I shared a picture with you. It was like $50 for a pack. Because Whatnot's like a bidding system. Like the viewers can bid to buy what the streamer is selling. It's an app that's been designed on the psychology of sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. It's not an app that's been designed from a place of wanting to share content with people. Like the way it is structured,
it's kind of brilliant. Actually, it's kind of messed up though too.
In a brilliant way, it's messed up.
It's very psychological. Like it already plays on the premise that people are competitive because you're going to be bidding on these packs in the first place. And then it has this layer too, where it's like, well, I didn't set the pack price. The bidder did. The dumb bidder over here that wanted. I told him he could get it for $8, but they just kept bidding. It's not my fault. I didn't stop it in any way. I didn't put the packs up for $10 to $5 a pack. But like, it's the perfect app for I don't have any responsibility for anything I'm doing.
Man,
and that's
you got to stop. You're like. We have like a neural link right now because that was what I was gonna. That's the problem at the moment is the absolute lack of accountability and responsibility. Right?
There is none. It's the market again. It's the market. Like everyone wants to act like the market isn't people. It isn't me or you selling cards. It isn't secondhand stores. It's not the secondhand market. Yes, like Japan, Pokemon International, they all set prices and all that stuff too. But the second it gets into someone else's hands and they initiate a sale. People see that, people track it, TCG player, all that stuff. We are all the market. And like there's got to be some level of accountability for that. But like you said, perfectly, no one wants any accountability for it. They just want to blame some faceless, shadowless market person.
You've been talking about the shadowless market for like easily like 2 years at this point. But that's the big problem with like both sides of, I guess, like influencer or creator that's come into the space recently. Yeah. Is this like absolute refusal to take any accountability or like responsibility for what they're doing. I mean, a lot of what you do is just call it out. You point and you say, this is what's happening,
Yeah.
And make it personal. Like we said before, like maybe a couple light jabs for comedic effort. It's not anything to go and hit your live journal over, but like it's not personal. All you're doing is like shining a light on it. And no one, like the people that you talk about just won't take accountability for it. And so nothing changes. And it's like I was going to say infuriating, but it's so like defeating at this point. It's so tiring.
Yeah, it gets to the point some days where you're like, who am I even talking to?
Yeah.
What am I talking to over here? Like you can literally go watch like a live auction happening down the street and be like, fuck man, that's a lot of people in that auction. Or you can watch like a video that some PokeTuber puts out where it's basically talking about the top 10 alternate art cards of like Sword and Shield. And you're like, oh, cool. Is it going to be like something? No, it's always value. Every single time. It's always value. No one even talks about their personal favorites. It's just, here's the most valuable cards, $200. And like, you see that, you see the amount of views, you see the amount of people that like it, which they're welcome to, by the way. I'm not saying don't like it. If you like it, great. That's cool. It's just, that's all there is. And it seems like whenever someone has a contrary opinion, it is, like you said, you're yelling at a wall.
A lot of okay, because I didn't want to like, I didn't want to get you on a podcast and the reason why is because it's so easy. I didn't want to get you on here and start just like turning into a like let's shit on everybody.
Yeah, chat. And I'm not gonna shit anyone in particular
because it's like it's so easy to do that.
It is.
Because like a lot of people make it easy. Wow, that sounds so toxic, but I'm just going to keep saying that. A lot of people make it really easy to call them out. because they do. And like you've done it before. I've seen you have some absolute battles, right? You had some beef with Applesauce and Seismic, right?
Well, those guys were just straight up just saying just like things that were absolutely unequivocally untrue. Yeah. And I think that's where it was like getting me kind of like where like I don't want to talk about the specifics about it, but essentially somebody did something they knew they weren't supposed to do. And then the community was just like, not a big deal, not that big of a deal. They just did that. And like not the community as a whole. There were a lot of people that they got a lot of backlash. But there was a lot of people that used it.
There were a lot of people that like there was a lot of backlash on it, and there were also a lot of people that had just excused it. And I remember the time, like a lot of people calling you salty that it wasn't you. I guess we're talking about the stolen Silver Tempest packs, right? Like,
yeah.
Just call
it's like, bro, I don't even collect English. I don't care about that.
And it was bizarre, right? Because I couldn't believe what I was seeing in like real time, because people were sweeping it under the rug because it was in the name of content, because it was just content. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, it's not a big deal. Yeah. It's just content, right? And so, like, even at this low level, also, that's not a call out on, like, anyone's sub count or anything. I'm not throwing shade at anybody's channel size. But even at this low level of, like, content creation, you had people excusing what was, like, pretty predatory and, like, just ethically wrong behavior.
Emulatable behavior, too. Easily someone could have done the exact same thing, and it could have been a much bigger problem than it was.
It's crazy because you've seen, and you've spoken about this recently, all this stuff with Logan Paul coming to light, with the crypto zoo and the crypto and the egg stuff, right? And it's literally, well, like, I'm not trying to say both of those are the same thing, but it's this bizarre like trend to just excuse like absolute like huge red flags in the name of content. And even with that, those stolen Silver Tempest packs, it's such a small level. Like, you saw it there. There are still people willing to excuse it. Yeah, so with this Logan Paul stuff, right? You put a video out, and I'll put a link to that in the description here. Speaking about a lot of the stuff that CoffeeZilla like brought up, man. And CoffeeZilla, that dude is cracked, right?
He's a legend.
His content, like I'd say, out of like anyone I watch on YouTube, CoffeeZilla is probably number one. He's like in my top 3 easily. Like, his stuff
easily. Like, he never puts out a video where, even if I don't 100% agree with some of the stuff, like, I'm always like, you know what? That was a good video. That was a good ass watch. I have nothing to say bad about what I just intaked. Yeah,
he's someone that I kind of look up to him because he's been putting in that kind of work and talking about the things that people don't really want to talk about for such a long time.
Oh yeah,
but he's just still pushed on years after. Like, he's even been blackmailed. Like, he's had like stories written about him, like all sorts of like terrible stuff. Yeah, he put out a video recently talking about Logan Paul and Crypto Zoo, and it's crazy because I'm still seeing people cape for him despite all this stuff that's now coming to light.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's mind blowing. Like, and I don't get it. Like, I actually like I don't understand why. Like, why? Like, what?
I can give you what I think about why people do it, but I also don't 100% know.
Yeah, hit me. Go.
So Logan Paul, like, jumping back into Pokemon, and I know, like, well, going back to the box break stuff again. Well, like, I actually defended Logan Paul coming back in at first. It was kind of before I made like content. I was like, you know what? This is an open community. We should at least give people a chance. I already wasn't a big fan of him because of previous events. I'm sure that a lot of people know about, like, him going to Japan, and not even just the thing that happened, the big one. He acted like a complete jackass over there. He acted like just a complete buffoon. So I already didn't have a good taste in my mouth about him. He came back. The Pokemon thing happened. A lot of cards got pumped. I wasn't really too worried about it for myself, but I saw a lot of people leaving the hobby because they were getting priced out by all of a sudden fans of Pokemon cards. That was another reason why I kind of said some stuff too, because I saw a lot of people leave collecting because they couldn't do it anymore. So I personally think he did that so he had options later. And as we see further, he did not only the Pokemon stuff, he did Dink Doink, which was that cryptocurrency for, ripping off the South Park characters, and that flopped. Then he tried to start up Crypto Zoo, essentially the same premise, also started up by him. That flopped, and CoffeeZilla put out the brilliant video for that, and definitely check that out. And then we're seeing now with like Liquid Marketplace, which is the biggest thing that affects us in our marketplace, because they were taking like physical assets and trying to digitalize them and distribute tokens based off a physical asset being stored, with one of the big ones being Logan Paul's card, the Illustrator Pikachu PSA 10, only one in the world. Or
and a lot of people are kind of forgotten about this, but yeah, that was a huge thing at the time.
It was huge. Yeah. It was gigantic. Like, you couldn't even open up like any social media platform without seeing it.
What was the share on it again? Like, because you spoke about it in your video. It was something ridiculous. Like
it was like 10 cents a token or something like that. It was something astronomically low. So they were going to have like 50 million tokens on that website, right? Logan was keeping 49% of what was being distributed, right? Like he has 49% of those tokens just being grandfathered into that. When I talked to Liquid Marketplace about that stuff, because they had a whole message battle with me, they said the typical was 85% had to be distributed out to the public, and you could keep 15%, but they made a special case for Logan Paul. You needed 80% of tokens in their company to do anything with the card. Anything. With Logan Paul owning 49% of them, no one can do anything with that card. And Logan Paul being a co-founder of Liquid Marketplace, the card was basically still with him. With 49% of the tokens and 51 of them being out and about, but no one can do anything because Logan has to give up his tokens in order to do anything with it.
So ultimately, nobody owns any part of that card because to do anything with it, to majority ownership, sorry, that's the word, to take majority ownership of it, you need to have over 80% of tokens, but automatically it's a losing battle because Logan supposedly got 49%. Their solution
was apparently a third-party organization was holding it, and it was basically like the custodian, which they told me, which was like Golden and PSA or something like that. I'd have to re-look back into it, but it was a third-party organization, which was the custodian for it. But as I said before, it kind of didn't really matter who was in control of it because he owns 49% of the tokens. Literally nobody can do anything with the card.
Yeah.
Nobody can do without his say so, nothing could happen. And people were talking about like him voting on like taking it out to like WWE wrestling ships when their contract says that he's not allowed to do that. But like the co-creators and people in the Discord and all that were like talking about it. And it got so weird. And I think people do that. And I think people latch onto these like things because they themselves want to also make some money too. And they see Logan Paul as somebody who can make them that money regardless of what it is. They just kind of want to believe that that's the case. And I think we saw a lot of that with like crypto dreams and like the coins and things that people were willing to invest in. And like even Pokemon cards to some degree, where people were willing to invest large portions of money or start up businesses and shops. And maybe it necessarily didn't work out for them, but they were chasing this dream of being financially free.
I have a bit of a different take on it. Well,
lay it on me.
I don't want it to sound like a super loaded question. And ultimately it's not
go for it.
too much. It's not too much of a different take. I think on top of what you were saying there, like, people want to make the money. They want to jump on it and ride it. Mm-hmm. I personally, I think people look at what Logan does and then try to emulate it on a content scale as well. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
I know that Logan can literally get away with like, you know what? I'm going to say alleged because I mean, for me, it's
that's
not a big issue.
That's a good word to use around here.
I know. Well, like I'm in Australia, right? And so like, if I'm going to get sued, like they're gonna go through the feds and like it's just too much work. But if
you just come to my house,
exactly, like you're in the States, so you're on the hook. Okay, so I'm gonna say alleged robbery, which is like it's alleged scams. Like he can get away with these alleged crimes. So like you can get away with it. I'm gonna do it too.
Yeah,
that's literally that's literally how I see it. Like people see that if they just emulate what he does, that there might be like a little bit of heat, but ultimately like people forget. Because people forget. People forgot about Illustrator Pikachu. I guarantee anyone watching this right now.
You talk to people about that. There's people that forget like what was in sets 2 or 3 boxes ago, myself included sometimes. Like I'll look back and I'll be like, oh yeah, this was in that set. And I'll like look through my binders or something. I'll be like, oh that's what was in that set. So I guarantee with like big events like that or like anybody like content creation wise, yeah, man, give it 2-3 weeks. It'll be blown over.
That's basically how he gets away with it. Like people like either choose to forget or choose to just like accept it. Yeah, like a buddy of mine, he put up a post in Pokemon Australia, which is like it's a Facebook group here. It's like it's probably the biggest like communal space for collectors in Australia. I don't know what it's like in the States, but Australians still use Facebook like a lot. It's like massive still.
We kind of do sometimes, but I think a lot of it's done on Instagram or like I think like Whatnot and like Drip are the big things that people will try to like go through now. Either that, Instagram, or like I guess there are still Facebook groups, but I think Discords are big too now.
Yeah,
like
well,
go through that.
Facebook groups are massive, and Pokemon Australia is like our biggest one. But he put a post up. It was your video. Sorry, I'm like, what the hell am I talking about? No, he shared your video, and he wrote like, he's like, where are all the Logan Paul riders now? Like, are you still happy that he came into the space? Are you still happy like what he did over the last 2 years?
100 hearts on that. They're like, yes, we are. We're super happy he came back.
Yes. No, like, dude, that was literally the responses.
I know.
And it's insane because like it's there. Like, it's like, are we watching the same videos? Are we reading the same words? Like, how?
I think we are, but I think people just have different interests and stakes in it. Like me and you don't really care so much because we like our cards and we like our hobbies and we'll get on with our lives. But like, a good story. I went to a card store here locally where I live. And I was just talking to somebody. It was like 2021, right around when like Eevee's Heroes had just come out. It had been like a week or two after. And I was talking to somebody and I was just trading cards and something like that. Someone walked up. I was looking at just full arts and things. He walked up and he's like, "Oh, you like Pokemon cards?" I was like, "Yeah, man, been into it for a hot minute." He like leans over, no shit. And Virginia was there too. She'll say the same thing because she thought it was weird. Dude leaned over and was like, "Aren't you glad Logan Paul stepped in and like pumped this stuff up? I'm making a killing." And like you look over, he has this giant plastic container full of sealed product, Champion's Path, Shining Fates, and like just tons of things like that he was like trying to move to this card store. I don't know if they bought it or not. I'm assuming not because I think he left with it, but he was trying to unload it and he was feeling real confident about it, but he leaned over. He was like, "Aren't you glad Logan Paul did this?" And I didn't say anything.
Bro was flabbergasted.
I was just like, I was more shocked. Yeah, I was like, what the hell? This 40-year-old man's telling me about how like Logan Paul bought him like a pool house.
God damn, man. I thought about the question. It is a valid question. Like we laugh about it, but it's a pretty valid question. But I think it's a good litmus test for like why people collect. I asked myself that, like, am I glad he came in? And my answer is always no. Like it's always no, because I think I know the answer to your question. I'm gonna ask this, but I think I know your answer already.
Okay.
Do you care about the value of your collection?
The only time I ever care about it is when I want to add something to my collection. That is really the only time I ever care. Like, what do I have to give up in order to get this card that I want into my binder, into my personal collection, or into Virginia's personal collection, because she collects too. And I'm sure some people have seen that as well. She has a really good assortment of stuff as well. I'm always like, what do I have to give up for us to get our cards that we want? Whenever it comes to us moving it, if I ever sell a card to get another card, I typically will let it go for what I paid for it or around that price, just to be fair, because I don't feel really particularly great about charging somebody for a card that I didn't pay that amount for. It feels weird to me sometimes. I don't necessarily like it. There obviously are a couple exceptions, but for the most part, that's how I stick to that. I don't care too much about value. In fact, whenever I look and I share values sometimes on Instagram, that's so people know what's fair, like what people are willing to put up with that and what people are willing to pay. Because once again, we have a lot of misinformation about prices and like what's going on. And hey, some people actually confuse English and Japanese prices. There are people that have like a $50 card that'll sell it for $5.
Yeah.
Because they think it's $5 because that's what the English is worth. And it's like, oh no, in like the Japanese market, it's just valued a little differently. They put it in decks. It's a popular character. It goes both ways. It's not to only get deals. It's so everybody can play fair.
I reckon it's capped to say like no collector cares, but when like majority of your enjoyment and care for your collection comes from the value of it, I think you're in for a bad time. And like it's the wrong, like again, I don't want to throw the G word around, but I think it's the wrong reason to collect because it's so volatile. Like it's so dependent on like outside influences and outside factors. Like if it goes to zero and you care that much, if you care that much when it's like high, you're going to feel real bad when it drops. So like I think caring that much about like and being that happy that Logan Paul came into the hobby, it's a weird way to think, because if you were collecting before that, like you were obviously collecting for pretty natural reasons. You weren't collecting for the value, because before he came in, I guess in 2020, like a lot of those cards were worthless or close to like worthless.
Pretty close to not what they used to be. I mean, I'm sure you've heard stories from like our bigger dogs that are here about how they rejoined back up in 2016. They'll tell you how much they paid for those vintage boxes, and you think about it. And I remember back then, because like I remember like thinking like, whoa, $800, $900 for a base set booster box. That's pretty dank, but like I can't really justify me shilling out that kind of money. I'll go buy the Charizard. I'll go buy the Blastoise instead. I'll go buy the Alakazam. And there were people, I guess, that wanted to buy that, good and bad, people doing whatever they wanted to do with it. I just don't think anybody knew that this was going to happen until like 2019. I think 2019 was like the first writing on the wall that people were starting to join and do things. And I think it was mostly because of content. I think it's content is driving a lot of this stuff. I don't even think necessarily so much people care about the value of their products. I think people care about the value of how many views sometimes that product can bring them, because of either it's just exclusive, there's a nice chase card in it, it's got a lot of things that people like in it, because I mean there's videos that do better, there's openings that do better, like you open a box of Dream League versus a box of Eruption Walker or something like that. I mean, it's there's an obvious interest, there's obvious things people like. Same time, nobody really knew until content started taking off like this, we only had a handful of content creators. Now they're everywhere. We have tons of them.
Yeah,
not a bad thing. But
it's not a bad thing. But I'd say like I was going to ask you this. I enjoy the hobby and I enjoy the space less when that's all I see. Like when I just see value all the time. And like there's videos I make that like I just after I make them, I'm like, and I put them up, like I'm just like I kind of wish like that I'm not proud of that. Like I'm not proud of it. Like I don't.
I've definitely done that before too. I know what you're talking about.
I still enjoy Pokemon a lot. That's why I'm still here. That's why I'm chatting with you. But despite all this like negativity and like, despite all this, I don't want to say like negativity. Just like when you say it's like negativity, it just feels like being on it, right?
Yeah.
It's just not positivity. It's not positivity. That doesn't make it negativity. I guess despite all like the non-fun stuff, like this stuff we're talking about, do you still enjoy collecting Pokemon?
Yeah, I mean, I still like it. I still look forward to the new sets. The Scarlet and Violet set's coming out here soon. I'm not like thrilled, I guess, about them, but it's not because I don't like collecting Pokemon anymore. It's mainly because I know like it's the start of a new era. I did this whenever I started Sword and Shield, moving from Sun and Moon and X and Y to Sun and Moon as well. When there's like a new era, it's just kind of, it's weird. It feels funny for like
it's
your
like
first,
this in between. Yeah,
yeah, you feel strange because you're leaving behind like, especially if you haven't completed sets like I don't. Like I'm like, man, there's still so many cards I need from Sword and Shield. There's still so many I need from XY. There's still so many I need from Black and White. So when you move forward and there's a whole nother layer, it's almost like, especially in today's climate, it's stressful. It's hard to think about it, and it's hard to like be like super pumped about it because you know there's a whole nother section of collecting that you have to do. But at the same time, yeah, I like collecting. I like doing card videos. If I could do card videos more, I probably would.
Yeah,
honestly.
We were talking about that before we hit live.
Yeah,
the struggle of like maintaining that schedule, but yeah, I mean, you still do it because you still love it. If you didn't love it anymore, you'd stop doing it, and I'd stop doing it too. I guess the reason why I ask is because since I started playing this year and getting to more events, like I found another love for Pokemon that I didn't know like I would enjoy it as much as I do.
Oh, yeah.
But I met a lot of people that like watch the channel and have like said to me like, yeah, I don't really collect. Like I don't collect anymore. Like I don't collect Japanese anymore. Like I've been priced out. And like when I heard that, that's when I was like, man, that takes the fun out of it for me. To hear people that have like been directly impacted by the way that this stuff's just been pumped, yeah, it just takes all the wind out of it.
Always the worst, man. It's like that when people are priced out. And then eventually when you just start seeing people not there anymore that used to like, especially on Instagram. I remember 2021 especially is when it happened. There are several people whose posts that I like. They'd always post like these really cool themed posts. They take like a card with like a plush, or they'd like theme it with like the anime or something like that, or like with their favorite gym leaders. There was a lot of cool posts like that from people, and it got so bad for some of them that they couldn't afford sets or specific cards or like some of their favorites, especially if they like Evolutions or Charizards or anything that happened to be like a big chase. And they made the decision they didn't want to be there anymore. And I think that's kind of what stinks too, is knowing the fact they left because people who potentially don't like the franchise as much as someone else is still here while someone else is not, you know?
I guess it's really easy to feel like you're priced out now as well, like because the new set that everybody's talking about, you can't look anywhere without seeing it, is VSTAR Universe. And like we spoke about a little bit before, it's like it's super expensive right now compared to what it should be.
Yeah.
Box prices sealed.
Yeah, box prices. Singles aren't that bad. But
Singles aren't, yeah. I guess that's the thing. And I've spoken about this a bit before, and you talk about it all the time. If you go and check out your Instagram stories, I think even you just put it on, that you'll share cards that you can go back and buy that were super popular at the time. Like everyone was saying, oh, you got to have this card. Like this is the chase. Now they're just like, they're cheap again. Like they're affordable, I'd say anyway.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I'm like, bro. I'm like, homie.
I did. Thought you were gonna say something else.
Malfunction?
No. Yeah. No, it was just I didn't want to cut you off again. My bad.
Bro is flabbergasted.
You want to talk positive? Oh my god. Yeah. There's a lot of people that like are talking about like how they can't like get cards or something like that. I know what it is. They want the cards that everybody has now because content is key right now. Like the biggest cards. And even some cards from, I think, VSTAR Universe aren't really like that expensive. I mean, the trainers like Irida's pretty up there.
The usual suspects are, yeah.
Yeah, it's all the waifus and all the golds, which those golds do look nice.
They do.
Aside from that, if you want to get like the cheap singles there, what I've been telling people to do is like, hey, go back and look at like previous sets because there's stuff from like Silver Lance, Single Strike, Rapid Strike, and like even stuff like back from like Sun and Moon, just like full art trainers, alternate art cards that are like really premium, that are really good. And honestly, if you grab them now, I guarantee you'll have a harder time getting them later.
Yeah.
And then like things like VMAX Climax, that's what I'm personally doing. I'm trying to get the VMAX Climax binder because that set was huge. Like I remember opening a few boxes of that and like putting it all in my binder. I was like, yeah, I did really good. And I'm looking at all the blank spaces in there. Like I felt so bad. I was like, man, and I looked at all the cards and I like add them to my cart and it's coming out to like $900, $1,000 USD for me to get like half of them. I was like, holy shit. So I took out like half of them. I bought all the full art trainers because that's what I mostly collect.
Yeah.
Which thank God I did because like some of those are like the Acerola is like ridiculous now. And Gloria's gone down a little bit, but like she ain't too bad either. But like there's so many trainers in VMAX Climax that are just so obtainable. So many singles, so many like the CSRs and things like that. I mean, if you go back and you look and you buy up some of that stuff, it really doesn't feel so bad. So yeah, like right here, I actually got a couple singles recently. So
there you
the
go.
Rayquaza. Got that right there. Let me get the light right. And then I got which I know it's not the alternate art, but the Unknown.
Oh yeah,
right
the hyper
there.
rare. Yeah.
Just like picking up little things like that, and I think that was like $35, $30 for both of those, plus a couple other like easy singles. And you can get stuff like that. It fills up your binder. You feel good about it, and it's like, oh, I'm actually making progress. And like when the cards drop down, when the prices drop down, and the boxes eventually come down, and you can get them for a good price, you're gonna look back and you're gonna be like, oh, I managed to get this stuff, and then I also managed to get some boxes. And I can do some content now because I mean, you can make content for like those high class boxes almost any time, and they will do really well because they're nice boxes. They're beautiful art. They're not the usual suspects for like boxes in English or Japanese. You can do that any old time. You don't have to buy into this stuff immediately. It will be there. I promise you, these cards will be there, especially with how much Japan wants to print and wants to get out there. Especially after Eevee's Heroes, how like that was just chaotic.
Yeah.
Whenever they released that stuff, and they actually came out and apologized about it. They were like, "We are so sorry. We'll try to print the demand." And ever since then, they've been trying their best.
Yeah, it's easy to get like sucked in and caught up in the FOMO. FOMO is another word. I feel like it's been overused and people get tired when they hear it. Yeah, but it is easy to get sucked into it when it's all you're seeing. But you've been collecting for
screen,
yeah. But you've been collecting for like a very long time. If anybody's gonna know it, it's you.
Yeah, this happens with all of them. Even like Best of XY, like the first high class set I can think of. And those cards now, if you look at the price on those now, like holy hell, like you're gonna have an aneurysm looking at that stuff, especially if you're trying to get it. But like back in the day, up until like maybe like 2020, those cards were so cheap, and they were pricey when they came out at one point. Not crazy pricey, but they were still kind of up there. It's just you got like 2-3 years solid where those cards are gonna hang out in this like limbo area where people are gonna decide whether or not they go up, they go down. They're gonna be in the playable standard rotation. People are going to be trying out decks. Like, they're going to move around. You're not stuck. There's going to be cards. And Pokemon prints a lot of them. I don't think people understand how much Pokemon prints cards.
It's understandable to, like, want to have a breather. But it's not all doom and gloom. I feel like, I mean, I this is what I do. I like my strategy usually with the videos I put up is like, you know, a couple of doomsday videos in between like 5 or 6, you know. Happy joy
binder show offs. You like show off your Dream League binder, your remix binder. I actually watched that video recently, by the way, and I was like, oh yeah, those cards.
It's easy to forget about them, man. Like,
it is, man.
It's shocking. Like when you open them up, and if you go and look at like any gaps you've got, when you see how expensive some of them are, like there's somewhere I've just like, I'm not finishing this set. Like it's a write off. It's done.
I can't do that. That's just
I can't justify
this. You're gone, and it doesn't feel as bad anymore. And you let a card go. It's like, I mean, I like it, but I mean, do I like it like $600? Like it, and then you like think about it, you're like, not really.
I was trying to master all Sword Shield sets.
I was too for a while.
When the bus left on Shield, because that's the one that's got the Marnie full art.
Oh yeah, you don't have the Marnie. That's right.
I just let it go. I was like,
poor man.
Nah, come on, dude. I'm this close to letting it go. Come on, man. Please, like, you don't open that wound again.
I'm sorry. It's just, I saw how many Marnies you had of Shiny Star V that when you told me you didn't have the Marnie from like the base, I was like, there's no way. You have like 20 Marnies of the Shiny Star.
I kept seeing them come up cheap because what I was doing, and I've spoken about this in some other vids, was buying cards that I thought were going to go up later.
Yeah.
That I could then use to get like chase cards in the future.
That's fair.
And so I'd see Shiny Star V Marnies pop up on eBay because people would open up Shiny Star V. This was like back in 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
They'd open up Shiny Star V. They wouldn't get Charizard, and they'd be like, "The box it's a bust, right? It's GG."
But they'd get the Marnie, and they'd be like, "Well, that's cool, but
Well,
like it's not Charizard."
Yeah, exactly. And so like they listed on eBay for like dirt cheap, and I was like, "Bet, like, all right, if no one else is bidding, yeah, say less, fam. I'll buy it." And so I was just like getting them because people were giving them away basically because it just wasn't Charizard. So then all of a sudden I had like a stack of them. It's funny because at the time I couldn't pull the Charizard. I'd open up Shiny Star V. I couldn't pull the Charizard. And I think I found like 4 Marnie. I was like,
yeah,
where is this Charizard, dude?
Then you look down, you're like, wait a minute, I have 4 Marnies.
Let's go.
Yeah, well, god dang.
I actually was sucked in. I was that guy. I was like, I had tunnel vision on Shiny Star V. And because of that, like sets that had cheaper cards. Like this is the case study of what you just spoke about. The other sets that like nobody was looking at, like Shield, that had cards like Marnie. You go and look at Oleana and Sonya, right?
Yeah.
They were so cheap. They were like sub $100.
Oleana's still pretty cheap. I think the only ones that have gone up is like Sonya, Clara, Caitlyn, and Marnie. I think that's really like your big one. Oh, and Irida too. But that's really it.
Like I got debated. And now because of that, like that's it. Shield's a bust. Like I'll never finish it unless I want to fork it out.
Well,
and
boxes are expensive too. Like I was looking at that compared to Sword. I was like, holy hell.
Zacian's
in Sword.
It's the power of waifu. I was going to ask you who's your favorite waifu, but like,
oh, easy Welder. Welder's my favorite card.
It is?
Easy, like yeah, I love Welder. I have a PSA 10 of it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got it for cheap because the card was cheap for ever.
It still is. It's a banger card.
Right here. So I got that. Yeah, PSA 10. I had a feeling you were going to ask that question.
So you had it ready.
Had it. Yeah, it's such a good card. It's so playable. Whenever I used to play the game back in the day as well, I used to run that with something that used colorless energies as well. So you could just accelerate fire energies onto it and it would count. Welder was such a good card. It was so playable. It was so good. Not just, it's waifu, obviously, but same time, like you can't predict this market. No one knows what any of this is going to do. That Marnie card, no one knew that was going to happen. People suspected it because of Lily. But they suspected it was going to be the card that you were buying up, which was the Shiny Star V1, because that's what happened in Sun and Moon. The Battle Boost Lily is just ridiculous. It's outrageous. And the Hat Lily is still ridiculous, but it wasn't until recently it got ridiculous.
It's kind of sus. Like a lot of the people in
it is sus.
Sus is like my number one word, by the way.
This is a funny word.
I just say it. I say it all the time. Like I'm probably like the only dude still saying it in 2022. But it's like really sus when cards like that just all like overnight will like rock it up. A lot of people that I chat with anyway, like we all feel the same way. It's kind of like this unspoken thing. I don't really talk about it a lot on my channel at all because like the second you start throwing claims out like this, like people say, they rock up, hey, where's the receipts? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start naming names as well, like there's going to be some trouble. So like it's
at
the same time, like you kind of feel like you have a responsibility to talk about it a little bit. I'll say loosely, like I think that there is a level of manipulation going on, especially with Japanese product, like that is beyond us.
What do you think is causing the manipulation? I have a reason why I think it is too. I'm just curious what you think.
Okay. I'll drop some bombs on you, right? Because
gotcha.
Okay, because I hear like a lot of stories out of Japan.
Okay.
And sometimes the first time I heard this one, I was like,
no way.
You cap it. Like you cap it. Like but the more like the more I heard it, I was like the dots started to connect. I'm like, okay, maybe this is
Alex
this is what's going on.
Yeah. Started to tinfoil it and it was going around.
Yeah. Well, the big one I hear is Mafia, right? That there is like
okay.
Yeah, I know. Like that's
I heard that too, though, actually.
I said it now, so like I'll keep that in the vid. Yeah, because like now like I've said that now. Do I need to like look over my back like for the rest of my life? I've actually joked. Have you seen me joke about going to America?
No.
Like I fear for my life now.
You fear for your life in America? It's not that bad here.
I've just made I've made so many American enemies. I'm like, you know what? I don't think it's. I want to go to NAIC, North American International.
There's no way you have more American enemies than me.
I know that's true. Like if he's still alive, like I think I'll be all right.
They're trying to find me though. Right.
Well, but that is the big one that I hear a lot. That like Japanese product is like heavily, black market stuff going on with it. Yeah. but it's impossible to prove. Like you need to go like full like Omega CoffeeZilla
In which case, if you
investigation.
did that, I would be very hesitant to even release that because
You
of
disappear, man.
implications. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be disappearing. But that's like that's the most hardcore I've heard.
I've heard it's because they know what dumbasses like us are willing to pay. I've heard that's a big one. Is like it's the stores kind of between each other. They kind of all sit down. Not only will people in Japan pay those prices sometimes because of the culture, they like perfection, they like premium for things like that. Not for everything, but when it comes to like collectibles and like things, I've heard that's kind of a very big thing that kind of happens like with how they feel about them. I've also heard, and it kind of makes sense too, because of like prices back in the day versus what they are now. And I remember you talking about with Primal Lugia about how like condition didn't used to really be that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like near mint used to like not really be spoken of that much over there. That seems a lot like Western and other people, like they've latched onto that because they know other people like that, and they just know someone's willing to pay it because either for content creation or for investment tips, whatnot, streams. I mean, just you name it. There's someone who could buy that and then twist that to their benefit. And I'm wondering if they just know that people are that willing to pay it.
That last one is like that's a massive point. And I agree with it because this is not coming from a salty. I'm not coming from this like I'm salty that it's not me and I'm missing out, right? Between Shiny Star V, VMAX Climax, GX Tag All Stars as well, and VSTAR Universe, I was flabbergasted. Like I was shocked at the amount of product that like Whatnot breakers or Twitch streamers that were breakers were getting of VSTAR Universe. Like
it's a lot.
We're talking like walls, man. Like multiple cases of product that they were getting like day dot, like within like on the month, like the set came out on the Friday, they had it on the Monday, and it was selling.
There's a lot of people that showed me that. They sent me like where people had just like these massive like stockpiles of the cards.
You can't, and so you can't tell me that like, and again, I'm gonna put this in twice. Like I'm not coming from a salty like I wish it was me.
Cover it up, make sure he said it.
Just so it's crystal clear, right? There's no way you're telling me that like some dude that just decided that they want to open up packs on stream has a better hookup than like you or me. Like it's just
they do.
They don't like they can't have a better hookup. Like they are just the only way they're getting it is that they're just paying through the nose.
They're paying through the nose, or they actually do have said hookup from that parent company that is possibly helping them out with that stream. It's not every streamer, but that site itself does help out certain streamers, if that makes sense.
Okay.
There are certain people that do get hooked up from certain platforms. I won't say which one, so no one can come after me later, but they will too. There are certain places and certain people and certain incentives. What does it benefit them to give me or you product like that? Like we're not going to tell them to go pay those prices. But if you give it to somebody and say, oh, the bids start at this much, or, you can get these boxes for this, they're kind of limited. And then rumors get started around where like print runs are going to get cut.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that was going around. I still can't believe that got traction.
I can, man. Like, there was that much like hype. You could have said anything about VSTAR Universe at that point. Like people were going to believe it. Like people were lapping it up. But
I just thought after like 6 high class sets, people would like get wise to this stuff, man. Like it happens like almost every year. It just gets worse and more elevated each time.
Do you think it is going to like tumble like in this next year?
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't think in the way people think it's going to, and this is just me, I could be 100% wrong. I probably am. This is when it usually happens too, is when a new set comes out, when a new era of Pokemon comes out, especially if they take out like extra incentives from like sets like the special arts or any of the crazy pulls or like the trainer gallery or anything like that. That's been making people really incentivized and like really pumping up their pulls. I think you and a couple other people talk about it too. Like older GX sets just used to be really barren, really not so full. Like you get like 4 GX hits, maybe a secret rare or 2. That was never really a problem for like me back in the day. Like, because like, A, I liked opening the product, and B, I felt like the quality of what you were getting, at least Japanese product, it was good. Like you could look at the commons, you could look at the uncommon arts that no one had seen before because the English sets hadn't come out. And you'd be like, oh, that's super cool. Look at this Mankey. Oh, that's super cool. If you actually sat down and looked at what you were opening, it was pretty cool. People don't have that same expectation. People don't really like look at it like that. There's a good, I'd say, I don't want to throw out a percentage because it's going to make people mad at me and you. There's some people that just don't care. Like they don't care about any of the art or any of that stuff in the card sets. And I don't think that's controversial. I don't think at all. So if they don't have the spicy pulls, and if like EX cards and terrestrialized Pokemon don't bring it, it's going to crumble.
Yeah.
That first year for sure. People are just going to be like, Pokemon's not fun anymore. You're going to see a bunch of Instagram stories. Pokemon's not fun anymore. I don't want to collect anymore. Just something's wrong with the spark or something.
It's like when they announced that Ash was going to be in the anime. And man, I saw that and I was like, because I don't watch the anime. I was just like, okay.
I didn't care. I mean, like, he's a good... I've always kind of defended Ash as like a trainer because the popular thing back in the day was he was an awful trainer. He was terrible. He has plot armor. He does that. Half of it's true. There's a degree to it. But I always made like the argument that like Ash was like one of those trainers that you couldn't use the same stuff on him again. He's like literally like the Mr. Freeze of Pokemon. He learns the second like something is used on him. You know that boss fight in Arkham City? Yeah, like it's like that. Like you can't use the same thing on Ash twice. Something gets used on him, he learns, and then he like uses that against like the gym leader or something like that too. And that's something that's always been prevalent in the animes with that. So I've always kind of been like an Ash defender. And me saying that, which got a lot of backlash, by the way, people did not like that I said there were some fake fans who were crying about Ash leaving. I was kind of surprised actually. I thought
that was crazy. I was like,
what? That's not even debatable. That's not even like an art. Some of y'all didn't like him. Why are y'all like? Yeah. You should be happy.
All the people that I still that I stay in touch with, that I talk about Pokemon and Pokemon cards with, I know like maybe like 10 people that like actively like the anime. And this isn't a knock. This is not a knock on the anime.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to.
But I thought it was crazy how many people all of a sudden cared about that. Maybe that was their first like I'm old moment. Maybe that was it. Like. And I was like
34 years old and it sucks.
It's like first time, you know that.
That thing. You're not wrong.
Around his neck. First time, bro.
For me, I thought it was like people saw another opportunity to possibly like pump something. I still think that to this day. I think that's going to be a way for people to possibly, pump vintage and like Ash related product and things like that. And I think the other thing that got me pissed off about that was like the misinformation floating around that as well. Like one of the big ones talking about how that was like Ash's first victory ever, when the only reason he was in the world championship was because he was the champion of the Alola region in the anime.
Even I knew that, and I don't even watch it.
I know, man. It's like it's a Google search. Like you can Google this stuff, and people still don't want to do it, and then they want to get mad at me because I'm like, that's not what happened.
Yeah, but like I don't think it's far-fetched to say it was like people's attempt to use that to pump. I got a little bit of flack when I was talking about EV Heroes in the middle of the year. Not a huge amount, but I had a lot of people say that I was pumping EV Heroes.
I remember that.
And it was so funny. Someone left a comment on it and was like, someone was just like, "There's no way this dude, like you're crazy if you think this dude is controlling the pump of EV Heroes." And like I think that comment said it as like a whack against me, but I was like, thank you.
Yeah,
like I took it as a compliment.
This guy's not smart enough to control EV Heroes.
But I was like, thank you, man. That was a compliment. Let's say I go and buy like 10 Charizard V super art rares from VSTAR Universe.
Okay.
And then I put like a post up and I'm like, Charizard V, it's like great card. Like,
well, that's just got to be your next post now. You got
yeah, but like,
that's on Instagram now. I'm going to be disappointed.
But there's no way like that I am pumping this set, like although like people like you and me are doing it, because there are other accounts, there are sellers on like monstrous monumental levels.
Yeah, we don't even sell.
We're fish. Like we're literally fish.
We don't sell.
we just talk. Like we just have a big mouth. That's literally it.
My favorite is like I know you probably get it too with what's behind you. People will see like stuff that's back here behind me. They'll be like, "Look at this fucking collection. You can't afford a microphone. This guy's just playing you. He wants you to think he's poor, just like you guys."
I hate
and
that.
And then
one.
like this one, like me getting this whole thing set up, this stream, and you watched it. This was like. I had to go through like 5 eras of technology to get this like duct tape together.
It's priorities, man. I get it. Like
that's what I like.
Like, okay, he's got a 1 megapixel webcam from his 2011 Mac.
Man.
I ain't judging, man. Like,
man.
He's got his priorities in check. He's buys what counts, and if the other thing is working, then let's roll with it. It's fine. I was actually disappointed when we started. You had a headset on. I was like, Where's the
that was
earphones?
Because what I use for my iPhone is I use like the little the lightning charger headphones, I'll plug that in. Well, for my laptop, because like this website's janky and isn't like anything else, it can't be used on a phone in 2022. I had to get like one with like a 3.5 jack. So I just had my old Xbox one where I used to play Gears of War. I was gonna try that out. That wasn't working. So I had to get like this one.
I'm glad you pulled it out. It's not an opossum vid without it.
Hey, it's for you, man. Like I wouldn't do it for anybody else.
It's funny because before we started, Possum said he was going to hold back on the swears a little bit because
did I just drop like a bunch of them?
I think a lot have gone through. I'm gonna keep like a count when I edit this. I'm gonna keep a count.
I've been trying too.
Don't worry, man. I was doing it too. It's all good. Hey, despite all like the different topics we've spoken about today, and while some might not have been super glowing, like I'm pretty excited for the next couple of years with Pokemon. Yeah. Like I kind of like that it's gonna cool off a little bit because I think it will.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think it needed a bit of a breather after like everything that happened and to sort of like ground everything. I'm interested to see where when the dust settles on this Logan Paul stuff, like how people are going to feel about it. I think that'll be pretty telling. But I don't think he can come. I don't think he can come back after this, like into this space. Like I think if people like welcome him back in with open arms, because he'll probably try it again. Because I have no doubt he's a Pokemon fan. But if he tries it again, like if people let it happen, like him run through
I'll use the G word. I don't care. I'll throw the G word up.
Rip it out, man.
I'll be like, nope. No. Not until you solve these 4 things behind you, sir. Nope.
I don't think it'll fly. Like I don't even without like people like you or me talking about it. I don't think people will let it happen again. I
don't think so either.
Because like while it did pump everything up and make people's collections worth a little bit more, I think the net negative was probably worse. The people that collected before it happened, that like did it because they just enjoyed it or was their space.
Yeah.
To catch up with people, like they got burned the hardest out of everyone.
It was a good icebreaker. It was a good place to just like be like, oh, you like Pokemon too? That's cool. I like Pokemon, and then start talking.
Whereas now it feels like a measure of status, like how big's your collection, what chase cards do you have?
Yeah, where you sit at the table, like if you don't have the Umbreon VSTAR alternate art, back of the line.
You know what the real flex is? This is the real Pokemon flex, right?
What's the flex?
Okay, when you go to like a league night and when you're playing Pokemon TCG tabletop, and someone rips out like gold Ultra Balls from 2014 or 2015.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the ones that aren't even like full arts, like the XY, like it just has like the gold, like dude, those are a flex,
bro. When I see that, I'm just like, I'm not worthy. Like, no,
people used to do that with the VS Seekers too, like back in the day. Like they used to play like the gold VS Seekers as well, because that was super playable in XY, and like someone that had like a full deck of those, but you used to be able to go to conventions or like the actual regionals or whatever, they'd have card shops and you could just buy them there for like whatever the price was. That used to be what like big money was. You're not even wrong.
Man, no matter what huge card I got in my collection, that is like that trumps it easily for me.
Some dude lays out his like $500 playmat, like all his gold cards on it.
I'm like, dude, take my Umbreon, man.
Yeah, like that Lily like Masters, the Masters EX like playmat, whips that out. Have you seen how much that is lately? Because I thought like I like Lily a lot, and I was like, man, that'd be dope. And I saw the price, I was like, well, I'm out. It's like $1,500.
Yeah, for a mat. Hey,
for a mat.
The last thing I want to ask you is a question that Primal Lugia asked me the last time I did one of these, which was, if you could start your collection all over again, would you do it the same? Would you collect the same way you did now?
Yes, I would. The only problem is I wouldn't have as much to show for it, but I would still think, because I remember you guys asking this question, it'd be like a combination of both your answers. Like I would, but I would definitely have some stream-like things. Like I like full art supporters, and I like very specific Pokemon. Like I have a Scyther binder, I have a Gardevoir binder, and then we have like some evolutions for Virginia. It would have to be extremely streamlined, but I would definitely still collect. I would definitely still open up product, and I would take care of all my commons and stuff like I already do, and sleeve up my reverses, and it just my collection would look different, but I would totally do it. I would 100% do it again because I like it here. I like cards. It's one of the few things that like you come home and it makes sense. The world is right. Everything is cool when you look back at your collection. As stupid as that sounds,
I totally agree. When I play Pokemon or when I'm in my collection, no matter what's going on outside, like it blocks all of that out, which is kind of surreal.
Everything's gone for like 30 minutes. You can just kind of be like, you know what? It's all right. I'm gonna look at this. Deal with that later. I'll deal with that crap here in a bit. I'm gonna play with my cards.
Like a grown ass man.
Yeah, man. I paid for him. My house. I paid for this heat.
All right, man. Thank you so much for catching up today. And thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, dude.
I had a blast. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it too. If you are interested in following Mr. Opossum Bud, you can find him over at YouTube on his channel. The link will be in the description. He's big on Instagram as well. And I don't think he's on Twitter, but
I have a Twitter. I've just never used it.
Yeah, I
use it to look at like shops. Yeah, I should.
Twitter's imploded. Just find him on YouTube and Instagram. Any final words before we cut this off?
I don't got nothing. See you later. Bye. Bye, guys. Later,
Where's the virgin? Come on, man. That was your bit.
Oh, it's cliched to say it here. You can't just.
Okay. Oh, okay. Fair enough.
It's not my space. I can't just go into your dojo and throw around my words.
Okay. Fair call. All right. Yep. See you later.